What's up, everybody? Jaxxsin here today. I got a quick critique and review for Headlander for the PlayStation 4. And Headlander is a future sci-fi dystopic society built upon, humans who have shed our mortal chains and have gone into synthesized form. We are now all iRobots. And so basically what happened is humanity, we were dying off, or something was happening, and this is where it's kind of like, the story's cool, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of questions I have, and maybe they're answered later, maybe there's some sort of way that I could find them later. A lot of the story is told through narration, which is happening during a lot of the combat and things like that, or you're just traveling and things like that, and so I missed some things, but it's a very cool story. Basically, we're not in our bodies anymore. We've uploaded our consciousness into a computer and we're put into these robots. And whenever one of these robots dies, it doesn't matter, like, our consciousness is saved and it's stored and it's put into another robot immediately that's manufactured, right? And so that's how humanity has lived. We've lost, like, all of the planet's resources, things like that. All that stuff is, like, dead. There's, people don't really remember what, and so you've got people who are now in robotics, and so, like, there's a lot of weird, cool things with that, that's, it's cool with the lines of dialogue, because there's all sorts of people, or robotic people, you could say, that you can talk to throughout the game, and there's some very cool lines of dialogue, very interesting, cool idea and concept for the story. I enjoyed it. I would say about 3/4 of the way through the game, and the game's fairly short. That's one of my critiques for it is, I liked it so much that I wish there was more of it, and I almost 100%ed the map and all that and got all the stuff, and I didn't 100% the trophies. I'm sure there's some interesting little things and challenges that you could find out to do if you gave a shit enough to go and look at those, but after one playthrough where it was so short and, like, where I've already, I could maybe give it one more playthrough, but after that, like, I feel I would be just disinterested with it enough that I just would not continue to give a shit. And that's disappointing. I don't know. I felt like maybe there could have been a multiple ending, something like that. With how short it is, since it's so short, maybe there could have been, like, optional endings and things like that for the player to chase. But that said, I love the way the game looks. I love the filter they had over it that gives it, like, this, it really reminded me of Jaxxsin. In fact, some of the sound effects in this game, like when you're getting upgrades and things like that, reminded me a lot of Jaxxsin, which isn't a bad thing because I really enjoyed Jaxxsin. I really enjoyed the way it looked and the whole presentation of it. And so it reminded me of that with the polish and stuff, but then you've got these handcraft, painted backgrounds. You got, like, just this very beautiful world that they've constructed, and you've got this smart layout, that, has smooth running game flow until there's this certain point where you needed this certain body, and it was fairly late in the game, and a lot of the map was cleared, and basically I fucked up. And I went up with this elevator into a sealed room that I had to have a green body to get into. And it wasn't a big deal, right? Because there was a green body located in there. But through some, like, combat and things like that, I lost the green body. And so I ended up having to run around and go chase circles until I finally figured out where there was a green body. Because there was only one, and it was in a very obscure area that I had been to a while ago in the game. And so at that point, I was just kind of like, wow, that was a halt. That took about, I'd say, 30 minutes of wandering around, not accomplishing anything, just wandering around, going to places I'd already been, because I'd already explored everything, I had already gotten everything, I was ready to move on. But because of this goddamn door and losing that body, I was just stuck, because I needed this fucking elevator in order to do this side mission that I really wanted to do, because I want to do side missions, because I'm just kind of picky like that. And so, but on the most part, and that was just one instance. For the most part, it was very smart, design, layout, basically in order to progress, when the Metroidvania aspect comes in, it's basically you have to have a matching security body to the door. So if there's a yellow door, you gotta have a yellow body, and higher colored bodies can go through lower colored doors. So, like, if you're in a green body, you go through a yellow body, you go through, like a red body, you're like top tier. And so that's how the security works, and that's how you're able to roam around and things like that. And as you progress through the game, you're told a story. There's a narrator of sorts, and you're communicating with them. Your character never really talks, and so because you don't have lungs, and so like you slowly find out basically who you are and things like that. And then at a certain point, the story just lost me. I don't know if that's due to my own fault for not being able to properly pay attention while I'm, like in combat and things like that. But, the story lost me. And so, but the story was cool. And even the ending was cool. And it was a very enjoyable story to experience. And I'm glad I got to experience it. As far as the combat goes, I'll say this. I was pleased with the skill tree because the skill tree it wasn't like, it wasn't super complex where you're giving up things to get things, you know what I mean? Where, you're actually, it was just like it's a skill tree and you were able to, maximize it. So it wasn't really customizable. It was just like you leveling up to gain new abilities and new things like that. But these abilities were awesome. Like for instance, when you would dodge roll through someone, it would actually blow that robot up and actually deal damage. So you were able to kill robots just by rolling through them doing a dodge roll. And that was helpful. There was one where you could headbutt them and you would actually just headbutt yourself off the current body you were on and onto the next body. There was one, these are cool, clever, little smart upgrades that add a lot of different variations on how you can approach situations and things like that. And there's definitely a lot of things there that's cool. Now, I was glad that they had those other ways of like combat, because honestly, the shooting with the stick, it felt really, really sticky. And I can't say anything other than when I would go to shoot with my right trigger, my right thumb would move ever so slightly and it would just throw off my aim. And because you had to have some pinpoint precision, and it just felt like it was just all over the place with the joystick. And it was definitely like, and I've played games like this before, like Counter Spy or whatever that one was called. I can't remember what exactly it was called. It was really fun. It was like 3D slash, behind. It was very interesting. A little shooter. Remind me of like one of those bullshit Flash games from back in the day I used to play on addictedgames.com or whatever. Anyway, so it felt like it didn't feel smooth like that. It felt a little sticky. It felt like it was a little harder to line up that laser dot, sight. And with that, it didn't really matter in the end. Because, eventually you became so overpowered through getting those skills that it wasn't even an issue, and your character was able to handle anything, no problem. There were a couple boss fights. They were interesting boss fights, little mechanics. They weren't particularly super hard. I felt like most of the difficulty in this game actually came from like figuring out what you're doing in order to progress. I felt like this was more along the lines of, and it definitely had its actiony moments, but they felt more, it was a good balance, I would say. But the combat wasn't hard. It never felt like pressing, like to the point where I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. When I died, it was because I ran into a laser or something like that on accident, or I was just flying, being overwhelmed and I would get blown up, you know what I mean? So there were situations where, I would die, but it was rare and it didn't feel extremely hard. What felt hard was like, okay, where do I go now? What am I supposed to do in order to get here? Where am I going? And also like, just how do I get in there? Things like that. Figuring out upgrades later and ways to access them. Overall, though, I'd say Headlander was definitely worth experiencing. I'm glad I played it. Anyway, those are of course only my thoughts. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments if you got a chance to play it, or just let me know what you thought about my review. Tell me if you liked it or hated it. Up click, down click, whatevs, man. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching. Take care till next time, and remember, keep being awesome, keep being safe, and be excellent to each other, everybody.